Hello and welcome. After a hiatus week, we are rejuvenated and ready to talk about fights. This is Sparring Partners Podcast. My name is Coby McKinley. On the other side is Brad Jones.
Yo, what up, what up?
Yeah, Brad's got a powerful beard coming in. I'm wondering how long it's going to get because you're looking at what, a few weeks?
Oh no, I can only go till Saturday, so we got another like 6, 7 days on it.
Why is your beard moratorium Saturday?
It's going to be transformed slightly for the Halloween costume, and then obliterated entirely when I have to go back to work that next week. Full disclosure, I'm currently on injury reserve post-surgery. So yeah, work will not allow me to have my glorious facial hair,
That's
but
fine.
in my time off, I can grow it back for a few fleeting moments.
If I may inquire, what is the Halloween costume?
Oh, it is Julian of Trailer Park Boys fame. So I have to get the goatee going. I already got the build for it. I'll just slap a tight black t-shirt on, some black jeans. There's a certain brother of yours that is going to be involved as well in some capacity, and we got a whole game going. It's gonna be great.
That's great. I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. It's possible I'll be playing the part of Riker on Halloween.
Okay.
You know that's a possible plan.
Mm.
Other than that, I'm not. We're still cooking up ideas over here at the McKinley house.
We got time.
Yeah, we got a little bit of time. Now, yeah, so speaking of time, this past Saturday was Khabib time.
Oh yeah.
I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I'm getting better at the segment. So it was Khabib time on Saturday for UFC 254. And so we're in the fallout of that. Big deal, big historic event. We had, of course, if this is a program you have searched for, you definitely already know Khabib retired post-fight. But before we get into Khabib's situation, in the co-main event, it was Robert Whittaker versus Jared Cannonier for presumably the number one contender spot. Jared Cannonier for sure, number one contender opportunity. The jury was out on Robert Whittaker, but that looks to be the way that they're going to go. What do you think about that? What do you think about it?
It doesn't interest me. It seems like it doesn't really interest Whittaker either. And I know it doesn't interest Izzy. Izzy was very blatant before being like, hey, Cannonier, you destroy Whittaker and you're next, right? So yeah, I don't know. The rematch, it doesn't do much for me. I haven't seen anything in these last two fights out of Whittaker that make me believe that there's going to be a drastically different fight than what we saw the first time. I just feel like that his win probably pushes Izzy more towards like something else. There's not really like another like contender kind of waiting right now at middleweight. So maybe he goes back and picking at John Jones again, or potentially looking at the Jan Blachowicz fight at light heavyweight or something. I don't know, but maybe they do the rematch. I mean, it's fine. It's a fine fight. You can do it. It's a big fight for the region, right? And it's a fine fight. It's just it doesn't have some kind of like a pop on it, right? Whittaker hasn't done something since that. It was just two fights ago. It was just last October. So we're 12 months ago. He's had two fights. Both of them had two fights since then. Izzy, if anything, I think he's gotten a little bit better. He's looked even better in these past two performances. Not Yoel necessarily, but and yeah, that's how I feel about it. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that the general disinterest of Whittaker, general disinterest of Izzy, and I feel like much of the MMA community feels like the result of a rematch is a foregone conclusion. Um, so it's just apathy all around. I'm very much like you in that respect, where I don't feel necessarily that I'm going to learn anything new there. Not yet. I think that the past two fights for Whittaker have been really important. Get that boy out of here. Get him out of here.
This boy.
Get that boy out of here. Yeah, I think that these past two fights were very important for Whittaker. Because so after the knockout, I mean, he essentially got knocked out twice against Adesanya.
Yeah.
I think it was really important for Whittaker, more than likely, and also just the general fan base to see that he can still absorb things.
Yeah.
Like he did against Till. He did here. Really important notes that he can still take a shot, because if he ever does fight Adesanya again, he's gonna have to. Yeah. But I think that if this general apathy continues to permeate the situation, I would not be surprised to see the winner of Hermanson Till get the next shot at Adesanya over Whittaker.
They fight in a couple weeks. It's another main event. Depending on who wins and how they do it, I think that if Hermanson gets a submission over Till, I think that's a more intriguing matchup against Adesanya. Now, Till getting like a knockout or something, that'd be crazy, depending on how it went. But I think if Till wins a decision, right, then probably not. We kind of stay in the situation, I'd say.
Yeah, because when I look at the middleweight top 10, right, you don't have much to pick from.
No.
As far as men who have not faced Adesanya.
Izzy's already beat half these guys.
And
fight so frequently.
Yeah, and so I think that ultimately would be more interested in a Hermanson Till, one of them. And you're right, depending on how they win, depending on if there's injuries afterwards. I think Whittaker could easily get skipped over for the fact that he's already stated he wants to take time off.
Yeah.
That does not seem to be the mode that Adesanya is in.
No.
So, even this is how I'll put it. Even if Robert Whittaker's next fight is Adesanya, I'm not sure that Adesanya's next fight is Whittaker.
Yeah.
And I think that while I don't think either of us are fully convinced that a rematch goes any different, I think that what we have seen last night for sure, and even in the Till fight, is that Robert Whittaker, sometimes guys lose a title and then they lose some more, and it is like, well, we needed to further inspect their path to the title to determine if they were really even that good. Whittaker's not one of those guys. Whittaker has proven twice now that he is indeed, maybe not the number one middleweight in the world, but it's very possible that he is. I would say he's entrenched as the number two middleweight in the world.
Yes. As of right now, he is most certainly the number two middleweight in the world. He's proven it. He's the guy right there.
Yeah, and I don't know who else they could have him, fight if he is gonna be active, but I believe he's about to have a child, or he just had a child.
Kid number 4. He's about to have his fourth kid.
Wow.
He's gonna take a little bit of time off.
Yeah, he's gonna take some time off, and I'm excited to see how the middleweight division shakes out. But you know what? I've talked myself through this now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that Whittaker's next fight's Adesanya, but Adesanya's next fight is the winner of Hermanson Till.
Yeah, I agree. I'll also throw in one quick tidbit on the end. I would love to now see Jared Cannonier fight Paulo Costa in their next fights. The end.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That would be incredible. Yeah. You brought him up, and well, I brought him up too, but we're talking about Cannonier's future here. What did you think of his performance?
So I was pretty high on Cannonier at middleweight because of how his power had translated coming down from heavyweight. Like he was hitting these guys, and they were like, when he was hitting Hermanson was like, I'm not trying to be hit with those again. And I even saw that against a Whittaker, man. He was chopping that leg hard, and like he was hitting him with some heavy shots. I was impressed with him. He looked good, but ultimately it was like, okay, he looked as good as he can, and as good as he can is probably like a number 5 guy in the division, like with the skill set that he has, but he can get better, he can keep improving his skill set. He's in his mid-30s, but right now he's pretty firm, like number 5 guy.
Yeah, I know that when I was watching the fight, I think maybe it's just that Whittaker is just so dang fast.
Mm.
And again, we just stated, absolutely pinnacle of the weight class.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this fight, Cannonier, while he had his moments, didn't seem like he seemed to be waiting. He seemed to be waiting for a perfect shot. He would hit the leg kicks, but when it came to his actual, his punches, he seemed to be waiting around for that perfect opportunity to land the perfect punch, and it never quite came. I mean, yeah, like I said, he rocked Whittaker in the third, but
he had that sense of urgency, which is nice. Most people don't do that, when they know they're down. He knew, like, I gotta go. He was hurt bad too, off that head kick. So I was generally, impressed.
Yeah. Well, I'll just go through. We originally weren't, so excuse me if I get some pronunciations wrong, but I'll just run through because next we're gonna get to the main event. But just real quick, I'm gonna throw just some quick names at you.
Yeah.
Give me 1 to 3 word opinion on their performance. Okay. So get that boy out of here. Get him out of here. Get that boy gone.
Go on.
Wrangle that cat. Get that cat out of here. Okay, so third fight down, we're looking at Volkov Harris.
It's going to be more than 3 words, but Volkov legitimately impressed me for the first time in the UFC. He's looked good, but like he's never looked like a world beater to me. Like, I don't know. Like, he went to that decision on short notice with NFL boy Greg Hardy, right? He just kind of looked, he won, but he looked kind of flat in that. And I was like, okay, whatever. He's like a number 10 guy got knocked out by Lewis. But in this one, I was like, hey, this, you could like fight a number 5 guy, like fight an Overeem or a Rosenstrike or something. Like, yeah, go ahead, let's move him up and see what he can do.
Yeah. I agree. Then we had Jacob Malkoun versus Phil Hawes.
Quick knockout. One guy does not deserve to be in the UFC. He got quickly knocked out.
Yeah, one guy.
4-0, right? 4-0.
Yeah. 4-1.
Oh, that's right. 4-1 on the pay-per-view main card, debuting in the UFC.
Debuting in the UFC at 4-1.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have one guy who doesn't necessarily belong in the UFC.
Backed up to the cage immediately and outstretched his right hand to start feeling the cage behind him to see where it was. Yeah.
I know, man.
Get that guy out of here.
We're in the age of COVID, and At no point during these cards have I felt the constraint on the roster like I did. Nothing against the two athletes, but for the pinnacle of the sport,
Mhm.
You have two dudes who have a combined 13-3 record
Mhm.
professionally. But yeah, you're right. Very quick, Phil Hawes. I think they're just trying to build the guy, to be honest, and
Sure.
not in a bad way, but he clearly looks good getting off the bus, and he is 9-2.
Yeah.
He's got to do something, but it is strange. I think they brought him in just because he was already quarantined from the Contender Series, and they need bodies on
Yeah.
these cards. Lauren Murphy picking up a win. I thought this was a setup for her to get shut down by Shakirova.
Mm. Yeah.
What a quick hit. What's your thoughts on the fight?
Not much to it. Like whatever, she was coming in on short notice. Lauren Murphy fight, just beat her. It's fine. The most impressive part of her performance was her post-fight interview. She cut a mean promo for a title shot that she's not going to get, but she will probably get rebooked against the person she was supposed to be fighting, Cynthia Calvillo or Jessica, whoever it was, I don't remember, and that'll be that.
And then next up we have Ankalaev. There we go. Ankalaev versus Ion Cutelabra.
Surprising, maybe surprising, not surprising. It's kind of what I expected. The dudes throw heavy. I expected a knockout. I was expecting a Cutelaba knockout, but he got knocked out instead, so it's fine.
This is a pretty fun fight.
Ankalaev's pretty savage dude at light heavyweight. Now he was number 11, so now we think he kind of cracks the top 10 maybe. So that could be cool. That division's wide open, sure.
I know, man. I know. Next down is our boy the shoey aficionado himself, Tai Tuivasa,
Mhm.
Stefan Struve. What do you think of that one?
Tuivasa looked good. Thank God, because he was on a losing streak, and he's been out for about a year now. He's been training with DC. Thank God, because he had no ground game to speak of before, and his skill set was fairly minimal and straightforward. Now, Stefan Struve also sucks and didn't put up much of a good performance. But that being said, Tai Tuivasa did great, knocked him out, clinched him, did good work, stopping him from kind of doing rangy stuff, even though Struve's never used his range properly. He still was able to get this head kick. It was like 7 feet away. It was ridiculous. But yeah, Tai Tuivasa, sure, I don't think he was ranked, but like make him 15 or something at heavyweight, right? He can fight like Dan Rothwell or something.
Hey, man. I mean, just getting back in the win column, I think, is a big.
Yes,
because he
this
said
was to prevent him from being cut. Essentially, this was like save your job.
And I mean, he knew it, and I think the rest of the viewing public, at least that has an idea of what's going on, knew as well that if he lost this one, he probably was off to, well, not in the UFC. I don't know where he would have gone. Then we had an absolute war of Nathaniel Wood and Casey Kenny. That fight was super fun to watch.
Yeah, that was a bad.
Really good.
It was definitely fight of the night. Yeah, Casey Kenny has a fan out of me now. I hadn't really been paying too much attention to him before this, but he got the follow on Instagram. When you start repping that boy, hometown boy, he looked great. That first round of their fight was like in contention for round of the year. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, dude. Then Alex Oliveira gets finished in the first round by Shavkat Rachmanov.
Out of
Nailed it.
he was out of Uzbekistan, I think,
Sure he is.
or some crazy place like that. But yeah, no, he looked great. He looked cool. Giant dude. Yeah, whatever. Alex Oliveira is not very good, so.
And then Jung Da-un and Sam Alvey.
It was a draw. Interesting fight. Yeah, largest Asian I've ever seen. Crazy.
I told you it's once in a generation. We had Yushin Okami.
You never get that kind of stuff. Dude was big.
No, we had Yushin Okami. He is gone now. Not in a bad way, but just not.
He's no longer with us.
Get that boy out of here. Get him going. Lock him in. Put a leash on him. The freaking cat. He's like Jaws, man. You just see that little orange tail around. There were a couple other fights. The early prelims, they were what they were. Let's move on.
Main event.
Let's get to the main event. Khabib Nurmagomedov taking on Justin Gaethje, and this was I think about MMA is a sport where miracles can happen, but we're reminded over and over again that they probably won't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I felt about this fight. I thought, in my imagination would go wild with, wow, Gaethje could stuff the takedown and if he puts leather to Khabib, he might be able to hurt him, knock him out. And then I started thinking about it more as the fight got closer. And Colin called me. And he's like, what do you think is going to happen? And I just remembered that, oh yeah, life is hard.
Mm.
And I was like, no. Khabib is probably just going to do what he does. And he sure as hell did.
Yeah.
And at a level I've never seen before. He did it was like he improved upon like what we thought was possible for Khabib with his style.
Yeah.
Pressure, takedowns, ground and pound submission, and then also his stand up. At every part of the game that we thought Khabib was the best in the world, in this fight, in less than 2 rounds, he proved that he was even better than the guy that we thought he was.
Yes. That was easily the best Khabib we've ever seen. Came straight out, fought so dangerously in the first round. Just so dangerous. Was like, I'm not even going to bother trying to shoot on this guy. I'm going to walk him down with my hands for this entire round at a furious pace, a breakneck pace that was out of this world, like an unsustainable pace. Like, you're not going to go to decision like that. Khabib's like, I'm going to finish. I'm going to break this dude. I'm going to break the guy that breaks other people with pressure and pace. It was nuts. Gaethje, circling heavy, trying to keep his back off the cage, but like, it was like a tornado was after him. He didn't, he was all over the place. And then something I've been doing this past couple of months now that we've been betting on all these fights real heavy is I've been like, man, I got to go with my gut, because I always get a gut feeling about these fights, about what I think is going to happen. And it's almost always right. Almost always right is the gut instinct that I originally had. It was a Khabib submission. Like, duh, of course it was a Khabib submission, because specifically, this whole thing, everybody's like, Gaethje's got this elite wrestling, right? Khabib's never fought somebody that had an elite level of wrestling. And I was like, Gaethje may have elite wrestling, but we've never seen it. He's never had to use it in the UFC before. And even if he does have this great wrestling, it's probably not very sharp, because he's never had to use it in an active scenario. And the wrestling is totally separate from the total ground game and jiu-jitsu and everything else that's going on the ground. His his wrestling was whatever. It was not great by any means, but it was so chaotic, right? Khabib was when he shot for the two takedowns that he got, right? It was like in his panic, right? Like everything's just going crazy, and then he shot, right? As soon as it hit the ground, it was over. It was pathetic. Gaethje on the ground was nothing. He had no defense whatsoever. As soon as his back hit the cage, he just laid there, and Khabib just stepped over and got mount triangle. He had nothing on the ground. Like,
Yeah, man.
that was almost shocking to me how bad he was on the ground. And I was like, I can't believe, like, you can't have a ground game that bad and fight against Khabib. You just can't. You can't do it.
I don't believe that his ground game is that bad. I like for a top level, because we've seen
Now you're
Gage.
get out of here.
We've seen there's another one.
They're all over.
We've seen Gaethje scramble before, and he scrambles really well.
Mhm.
For him to not move once he hit the mat, and I'm gonna have to rewatch it again to see if he really tried anything. But something as bizarre as that leads me to believe that he may, in just my opinion, I think he was more than likely hurt
Oh,
in
for
some
sure.
way.
Or at the bare minimum, exhausted and confused.
Well, but that's the thing too. But that's like a pace like that is that, I mean, everyone, when you game it out pre-fight, a pace like that is a thing where you think of a guy like Gaethje and you go, perfect, fine. I mean, he's done it before. He's done it over 25 minutes. But yeah, man, I like the lack of movement from bottom. There's got to be something that we will probably never know. Because Gaethje's just doesn't seem to be the type of dude to talk about those things after a fight. But the lack of movement from bottom really, either Khabib is just that strong, or Gaethje was not 100%. I mean, to Khabib's credit, he wasn't 100% either. So
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, it's not a thing like poor Gaethje, or this is. I mean, Gaethje. What we saw in the octagon is probably how that fight goes every single time, and they could do it from now until they're dusty old men.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, it was
skill set. It's like the beef skill set is always going to win against the guys that have a skill set like a Dustin Poirier or a Justin Gaethje.
Well, I think that Khabib just wins against any skill set at 155 pounds. I don't. It's Let me go ahead and I'll take us into our next kind of section, right? Transition over. Talking about who Khabib beats, and very shortly, I don't want to get lost in the pound for pound discussion, because I think it's a waste of time ultimately. Pound for pound rankings, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Like, if we put all these men in a tournament together, who's going to win? Because for a while people said it was Demetrius Johnson, which I just don't. Or like, if they're all the same size and weight class, this is whose skills win. It just is a useless. It's just a useless list. But let's just for a second, even though I personally think it's a useless list, where do you think Khabib ends up on the pound for pound list?
On Monday morning, he will be number one currently. As of right now, he'll be number one, and he'll be there for a week, and then he'll be gone from the rankings altogether because he just retired.
Yeah.
And it'll be irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, GSP said something, speaking to Ariel Hawani, a thing that I very much agree with. He's, you know, the way he put it was that the greatest of all time. I mean, he also was trying to say that it's ultimately a meaningless thing, because it's determined by who is the recent who has the most recent fight.
Yeah.
Like, you know, um, when Khabib beat Gaethje on Saturday, he became the greatest of all time. When John Jones stopped Gustafsson, or when he stopped Cormier, he became the greatest of all time. Um, GSP knocking down and submitting uh, Michael Bisping. He became the greatest of all time. And it is just this constant thing that as people get older and retire and younger fighters do great things, it's just greatest of all time or number one pound for pound. It is just never going to get settled. Um, and I think ultimately because this sport is it's based on what we can prove. You know what I mean? It's based on, like, well, if this guy's better than this guy, then they should they should fight each other because that's what we do in the sport. And when that's not possible, eh, I don't think it's super useful. Um, but so you think that Khabib come Monday will be number one, and then it'll just kind of be uh, whoever the most recent really good fighter is that fights.
It'll go back to John until
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. How about him getting salty, huh?
Whatever. It's John. He'll start good. He had a night. The tweet right out of the gate was fine. Yeah, go ahead, just have your moment. Sorry about your dad. But then he had to think about it. Go
And
now,
then he
wait.
was like, you know what?
You
I
know
need to
what?
make this about me now.
Right? Y'all gonna take my accomplishments away from me?
It's so it's so, again, it's just not a, yeah, it's just useless. So I think that instead, and you pitch this, we should instead do a ranking that actually can be like defined because they're all in the same weight class. Now, Khabib leaves the sport, and the question is he the greatest lightweight champion we've ever seen? Because as you brought up to me last night, he does not have any more title defenses than any other lightweight champion.
This is correct. I've spent the day
He is in a four-way tie.
doing some research. So I'm gonna hit y'all with some cold hard facts real quick, and then we shall discuss them. All right. So we're gonna be discussing 4 UFC lightweight champions. All 4 of them had 3 title defenses. All right. First up, there was BJ Penn, then Frankie Edgar, then Ben Henderson, and last Khabib. So I'm not going to be talking about the fights where they won the belt. I'm just going to be talking about their title defenses.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start. BJ Penn, 3 title defenses, 3 finishes. A TKO, a submission, and a TKO over Sean Sherk, Kenny Florian, Diego Sanchez. Frankie Edgar, 3 title defenses, a unanimous decision, a draw, and a KO. BJ, Gray Maynard, Gray Maynard. Ben Henderson, 3 title defenses, 3 decisions. Split decision, unanimous decision, split decision. Frankie, Nate, Gilbert. Khabib, 3 title defenses, 3 finishes, all 3 submissions, Connor, Dustin, and Gaethje. Okay, so of these 4, right out of the gate, I think unquestionably it's questionable. It's arguable, but this is my own personal list. Khabib has the strongest resume of title defenses of these 4 champions. Now, it can be argued that the only other person that can really challenge him is BJ Penn. BJ Penn and him both finished all of their title defenses, and they were against the best guys at the time, and they were really dangerous guys. Frankie Edgar defended against Gray Maynard twice. One of them was a draw, and the other one was the BJ Penn rematch. Ben Henderson's were just god-awful, though clearly last. I mean, his split decision against Frankie, I thought he lost. The split decision against Gilbert Melendez, I thought he lost. And he got a unanimous decision against Nate Diaz, who didn't deserve to be in a title fight.
Hey, man. Hey. Hey, Vincent Henderson, the split decision king, man.
That was and the Fox King, because they couldn't sell pay-per-views with him. So all his title fights were main events on Fox. So overall, my power rankings, right? I've got Khabib, best title defense record in the UFC against the 3 strongest opponents, finished all 3 of them. Next up, I have BJ Penn, finished all 3 of his guys. After that, Frankie Edgar, and then last, Ben Henderson. What do you got?
So for me, looking at this list, the only lightweight champion's resume that I can really, and you already hinted at it, I can really take anything away from is Benson Henderson's. I don't think that at the time Nate Diaz was necessarily an undeniable force in the lightweight division. Gilbert Melendez, I mean, you can, by the nut, he challenged twice for lightweight belt, so he's a perennial contender. So I would count him as a serious contender. And I think that Frankie Edgar largely fought the best guy available for his title defenses too, because myself, I'm a little biased. I didn't think he won the first fight against BJ Penn, so when he defended his belt against BJ Penn, I thought he was fighting the best guy available. Gray Maynard at the time was clearly, he drew with him. He was Gray Maynard. Gray Maynard was equally the best in the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, I go back to what you're saying, and it's because there's 2 ways you can think about a greatest lightweight list. Is it strength of schedule, or are you taking a look at the skills they have, and who would win in a 4-man tournament? Penn, Edgar, Bendo, and Khabib, all of them in their prime. That is a completely different discussion. One that I still largely feel that Khabib wins.
Yeah.
But as far as resumes, I think it's much closer, and I err on the side of Penn, just because not that the shot of Connor's against Khabib was unwarranted, because Connor had a belt and it got stripped, and the lineal belt was still with Connor. But he was definitely not the best guy available. He's a very good guy. He was definitely a top 5 lightweight that was available. But it's been the continual story of the Khabib story. Tony Ferguson's out there and he's real. So when that fight goes down, there's someone else that could have gone in for Connor. It probably would have been a Tony. And also, that's one thing that's a little bit unsatisfying about a title reign like Khabib's, where you do feel like there is a guy out there that was the boogeyman and could very well have beaten him. Whereas with Penn, Shirk was the former champion. He got stripped. He did a little bit of the old drugs. And, it's UFC, baby. Get him back in there. Give him another shot of that belt, boy. Get him back in there. 5 rounds. We know you up to it, Shirk. Then you had Florian, another guy who was undeniably the second best lightweight in the world. And then you had Sanchez, again, who at the time was undeniably the second best lightweight in the world. And I just flip back and forth in my mind all the time on this, because after you sent me this list, I was just going and I was like, man, I think it might be Penn, but damn it, Khabib is so good. Skill for skill, it's clearly Khabib. Khabib is the best lightweight we've ever seen. As far as strength of schedule, I think it's debatable, and I think it's a toss-up between Penn and Khabib. But I'm just going to, you know what? I'm just going to go with Penn, because that's my favorite fighter of all time. So that's...
Well, this is going to transition perfectly to our next segment of shaking out the lightweight division, the top 5 at lightweight, now that the title is going to be vacant, because this is going to tie back into that last section, because right out of the gate, before we even get into the breakdown of all this shit, I'm just going to tell you right off the jump, with Khabib removed from the scenario, lightweight is left with five people to contend for the belt right now: Conor, Tony, Dustin, Gaethje, and Michael Chandler. Now, who just came over from Bellator, who they're making a big fuss up, right?
Yeah.
I heavily favor Conor to beat all those guys. I would, if every single one of those guys, I would favor Conor in a matchup with all 4 of the other 4 guys, which is why I think that Conor, at the time being the lineal champion, was the right opponent over Tony being the interim champion. And I still think he is the most dangerous guy there, which is why I think that was probably of these 3 title defenses. I think Conor was the most dangerous of all 3 of them.
Wow. Well, I mean, Conor's clearly dangerous. I just am not sure. So out of those 5 men, because I don't think we have. Yeah, Chandler is not in the rankings yet. He'll probably be in the rankings on Monday. You think?
I'm assuming they don't put him in the rankings until he fights somebody. It's pretty clear they want to put him in a number 1 contender fight. I'll say that, right? So
they're probably paying him enough. I mean, there's.
In my shake, we'll get into the shakedown of how I do this bracket real quick, because I think they're going to want to put Michael Chandler in a number 1 contender fight, not in a title fight right out of the gate. So I'm going to book Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Book that fight. That is going to be co-main event to Conor, Dustin 2, which is now going to be for the vacant lightweight belt. I'm doing that because both of those guys are coming off of wins. You have Gaethje fresh off of a loss to Khabib. Gaethje also lost to Dustin Poirier, so I would put Dustin slightly ranked above Gaethje right now. Tony also coming off of a loss, which is why I'd put him against Chandler instead of putting him in a title fight. Who's the odd man out? Gaethje, right? Gaethje literally just fought, and they're talking about booking this Conor and Dustin fight for January, so 2 months.
Yeah.
Gaethje, just chill. You just sit for right now. You do in January, Conor, Dustin 2 for the belt, co-main event, Tony, Chandler. Anything happens to anyone else can hop in. After those 2 fights shake out, then you throw Gaethje in there. His next fight can be against one of those guys for number 1 contender or whatever. But that is how I would shake this thing out. Now it gets dangerous when you start talking about throwing the lightweight belt back around Conor, because we could real quick get back into a situation of he literally wins the belt and is like, all right, I'm gonna go box Manny Pacquiao now and screw this whole thing all up.
I don't think that, call me naive, but I think that we are truly dealing with a different McGregor. than we had when he held the lightweight title.
I hope so.
I mean, I hope so too, but I also think so. I think that the Pacquiao, I honestly, I think, now that we're a couple weeks removed from it, 2, 3 weeks removed from it, I think the Pacquiao talks were a cry for help, for McGregor, of like, dog, I am literally willing to do anything to fight.
Just want to fight.
I just want to fight. I am
Yeah.
willing to go box Manny Pacquiao in the Middle East. That's what I'm willing to do.
And even before this, he was willing. He was going to fight Dustin for nothing. There was no belt involved, no interim belt or anything. He was totally fine fighting Dustin in a main event for nothing, right?
Yeah, and I think that the UFC might have trouble retroactively turning that into a title bout.
It hasn't been signed yet, so that
okay.
Hasn't been signed yet.
Oh, we're in there. I actually, I would really love to see. I would love to see Gaethje Chandler. I would love to see Gaethje Chandler because they both just. So granted, Chandler didn't fight, but Gaethje didn't take that much. He has a cut on his eyelid or something. He had a cut on his eyelid, but other than that, the dude didn't take that much damage. They both just kind of did a fight week around the same time, and I think that a guy coming off a loss. I think Chandler's the perfect guy. I think they're both perfect for each other at the time of their careers right now. Because I'm not sure. Ferguson really, to me, is just such an odd man out because he's not. This is the thing: is that Ferguson. Listen, people think he's weird. I ultimately don't think that Ferguson is that marketable on his own.
No.
What made him marketable was that he was the real life boogeyman in the lightweight division because he just kept winning. And now that mystique is gone, I just don't see him getting the preferable matchups that, and I'm not talking about building back up kind of matchups. I'm talking about enviable spots, enviable matchups and spots on cards, and I just don't think he's that marketable. Which is why I think that of all the people in this little round robin we're talking about, he's gonna be the one that is, fill in. We did the stuff with the pieces that we really wanted to do, and now I guess we can put Tony there. I don't feel like they're gonna push him very hard.
I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And so now we got lightweight shaken out. And we've determined that Khabib is more than likely the best lightweight to ever walk the face of the earth.
Yeah.
We now move on to Halloween. Tricks, treats. We get a treat. I was trying to wrap in a Halloween with a segue, and I just couldn't do it. So let me just say, we may see something very scary on October 31st. It's not the masks, it's not the costumes, but it is the return of Anderson Silva against Uriah Hall. Depending on which type of Uriah Hall shows up. If Uriah Hall shows up on Saturday and is cosplaying as Violent himself, it should not be very fun to watch for an Anderson Silva fan. How do you feel about it?
I'll just throw a couple little factoids out right out of the gate. So, Anderson Silva is currently 45 years old.
Sure is.
He has now not fought in 16 months after Jared Cannonier viciously obliterated his broken leg.
Sure did. Yeah.
So, my expectations are very low. I expect Anderson to lose. The question is, does he get violently knocked out or does he lose a decision?
Yes.
The one thing I'll say is Dana very forcefully leading up to this has been like, this is Anderson's last fight in the UFC. Anderson's been like, I want to fight for another 10 years. But Dana's been like, yo, dog, this is your retirement fight. This is it. I want this to be, Anderson's wording of it is, this is my last fight in UFC. I'm like, you can go to Bellator, dog. If you want to keep doing the old man fights, that's fine. But old man Anderson Silva fights are not UFC caliber fights anymore. I don't need. Please hop in. I haven't needed Anderson fights in the UFC for like 7 years now. Well, a long time. Anderson stuck around way too long. Go.
Can I just say that if Scott Coker hears that Anderson Silva is a free agent and he doesn't immediately try and put on some sort of catch weight between he and Fedor Emelianenko, that I don't believe that the UFC would ever let Anderson Silva out of his contract. I don't believe that. I think that they more than likely will sit on his contract. But in the wild, crazy possibility that Anderson Silva gets cut loose, hey man, there's a chance that we could see Anderson Silva versus Fedor Emelianenko in Bellator. That would be a heck of a show. That would be a fight that I'm ashamed to watch, but definitely will.
Dude, just like 5-6 years ago, it would be an insane thought to be like, hey, Anderson might leave the UFC and go fight in Bellator or Strikeforce or something, right? You'd be like, there's no way the UFC is ever gonna let that happen. Now, I don't think they care. They cut BJ Penn free. They're like, yo, dog, you're out here getting knocked out in the Hooters parking lot. Go on, because you're what you were to the UFC. You're not that anymore. Like Anderson's not even a draw. He doesn't even do big draws anymore. So the UFC's like, you're dead, son. It's fine. Go on. I think they would totally cut if Anderson was like, I want out of my contract. I want to go sign somewhere else. I think they'd let him. I think they'd be like, all right, go on, bro.
I think you're right. The way they promoted Anderson Silva back a few years ago compared to now,
it's different.
I mean, this could be
fights they're booking him against.
Oh yeah, like they are. I mean, this could be nothing about this card or the build up to Saturday or the media that's been like wrapped up around it. Nothing about it feels like an Anderson Silva card.
No,
it's no longer a special event. That's what I'm saying. It's not a special treat that we get to see this, the GOAT Michael Jordan of MMA. You get to go out, step in the cage. It's like, no, man, it's not. It isn't that anymore. It just isn't.
No, what's not like so a lot. Everyone is like they're after the Khabib fight. They're like, oh, what's your top 5 for all time greatest list, right? Anderson is like hardly on anyone's top 5 of all time list, and like there's a point in time where we were watching him front kick Vitor, and we're like, this is the most insane guy ever. Like this guy's on another level, and now it's like he's not even not in top 5 anymore. Like it's crazy how his mystique was tarnished so bad with the test, with the repeated losses. Like it went downhill so bad at the end.
It's not just losses, though. It's not just losses. The same reason people have a tough time putting Jones at number 1 pound for pound is the same reason, even though not a lot of people talk about it, is the same reason why Anderson Silva is not as high either. He popped. He took I can't remember what
His was the Viagra defense.
Yeah, it was the Viagra defense.
Yeah.
Which ultimately was paper thin then, and it seems even more paper thin now. It's that. And it's a shame because yeah, I mean it's not enough that his performances in recent years have tarnished him, but I think really that positive drug test did a lot to tarnish him.
It's also like it's crazy the sport in terms of how much of well, I get it because of the fan base rolls over quite a bit, but like so GSP left after the Hendricks fight's gone for 4 years, and then when he came back against Bisping, there was that whole debate at the UFC. They were like, we've done these polls and our fans don't know who you are. He's been gone for 4 years. Now he's been gone even longer than that, another 4 years.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, let's bring him back to this Khabib fight. It's like a bunch of these fans don't know who he is. They've never seen him fight before because so many fans have come on in this post-Conor age, and they're like, who's this guy? Like GSP is like, yeah, like they just don't know who he is, and it's great. These people don't know who Anderson is either. Like Anderson used to be hanging out with like Kobe Bryant and shit. Like it's nuts. He was sponsored by Nike. It's crazy.
Yeah, sponsored by Nike Brazil, huh?
And now he's fighting on not a pay-per-view. He's fighting on a fight night on Halloween night. And my only hope is that he doesn't get brutally injured in the fight is all I'm really hoping for. My goal scenario is him to lose a listless decision and then just get out of here. Quit doing these fights.
Yeah.
It's brutal, man. They put him against Cannonier. Cannonier was so savage. He was like, oh, yeah, I remember you, like, snapped that leg in half, right? I'm going to kick the shit out of that thing until you fall over and we break that leg again. Like, that booking was insane. And he never should have fought someone like Cannonier. It's just, it's wild to me.
Yeah. I will watch. And I mean, that's the thing is like, I don't like to hope guys lose, but it's one of those things where I think that even though no one wants to see it happen, the best thing for Silva's long-term health is that he gets shut off. Because if he does lose a lackluster decision, Anderson Silva, to me, is an honorary Diaz when he loses a decision now in this current phase of his career, because most of the time when he loses a decision, it just looks like he didn't care for 13 out of the 15 minutes of the fight. Mm-hmm. And then he's just like, oh, how'd I lose? It's like, well, you let Michael Bisping jab you a billion times while you did nothing. I would like, granted, we would like to see Silva get a win right off in the sunset, but the sad thing is that Silva, just like most of these fighters, you give him another win, that's just their sign that it ain't time yet, baby. It's time to keep this ball rolling. And it's just time's done. And I don't want to keep beating the dead horse. I think that we don't even have to give a prediction for this fight. We both have been pretty clear how we think this is probably going to go. I think it's Uriah Hall's fight to lose. Really?
I just don't think so. Like the Uriah Hall spectacular finishes, like the first Gegard and Mousasi fight. I just feel like he's not going to have the same that. I feel like there's something when a guy's like coming at you and you're like scared, like this dude's trying to like take my head off and murder me right now. That's when you can do some crazy shit, right? Like, I just feel like he's not going to feel that against Anderson Silva.
No.
Kind of like Adesanya too, right? It's kind of like.
I think that the most likely outcome of this fight is, like you said, a borderline boring 3-round decision win for Uriah Hall.
3 round.
Oh shit! It's a main event. You're right. 5
They don't
rounds.
even give them 5 rounds. They're like, look, guys, let's do it 3 rounds.
Let's just call it. We're 3 rounds in. We know who won. So let's just move down to the rest of the card because we were talking before the show. This is for the real heads out there. This card is put together some real some dudes that have been around the block a couple times, right? Not as many as Anderson, but a couple. The co-main event is awesome. Andre Feely, Bryce Mitchell,
Yep.
dope. Kevin Holland, Muradov, dope. I'm always down to see. Full disclosure, Muradov. I'm sure I've seen him fight, and I'm sure I know who he is if I saw him like in video footage. But these names all run together, man. I can't.
There's a lot of them now.
There's a lot of D's, O's, and V's. Then the next one, Maurice Green taking on Greg Hardy. I love that fight. I love that fight.
Yeah.
It's a perfect matchup for both of them. Because that's what they like to do. They like to hit people.
Yeah.
And then Bobby Green, Thiago Moises.
This will be Bobby Green's 4th fight in quarantine. It's insane. This dude's been super active.
Yeah, and I was saying before we hit record, Bobby Green is currently unranked. He hasn't fought anyone who's ranked. And it occurred to me his last fight. This guy does not belong without a number next to his name. I'm not saying he's top 10. Maybe he is. I don't know. But he is a veteran in this game. And he's taken, before this most recent, 4 fights. Am I mistaken? He had taken a lot of time off.
Yeah.
He'd taken a lot of time off, like multiple years.
Yeah.
So he didn't rank up damage in that time. But I believe he kept training. So yeah, dude, he looks as good as he's ever looked.
Yeah.
I think he is one of those he's one of those dudes where if he has a very troubled life, he lost both of his brothers to gun violence. And I think that, those things have definitely taken their toll on his career as a whole, but I contend that Bobby Green is one of the he's going to go down as one of the best dudes really to never be in the top 5. Like he just is. And we'll move on to the prelims. I always mess up this name. Chris Grutzmacher. Versus Alexander Hernandez. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for that fight. Then we have Adrian Yanez and Aaron Phillips. Yanez from the Contender Series. I can't remember if he fought post-Contender Series. Then under that, we have Sean Strickland, Jack Marshman. Strickland, again, he's just another one of those dudes, just grindstone type of fighters, just knows the grind. Then we have Miles Johns is on the card. I like Miles Johns. He's talented, young. And Courtney Casey is on the card. Dustin Jacoby. And that's it. There's a welterweight fight. Cole Williams, Jason Witt. Almost didn't mention it because I guess I'll leave myself to be surprised for that one because I don't know who those men are.
Same.
Of those fights, what's a couple that stand out to you the most?
Very high on Bryce Mitchell.
Agreed.
Very good. I definitely taking him. I don't like Alexander Hernandez, so I hope he loses.
Okay.
But yeah, that's about it. There's a lot of fun matchups up and down that thing. It'll be a nice fun card to have on in the background at the Halloween party.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that this is one of those cards where it's like UFC. This is what I'm talking about, man. Like if you're not gonna deliver me a card that is like diamond encrusted creme de la creme, homie,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Top
like
shelf.
pop off the page matchups. The alternative is offer us some dudes that are going to put on some absolute bangers.
Yeah.
So I'm beyond excited for Saturday. In a way, I haven't been excited for just a fight night in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And even though on paper it might seem that it's because Anderson Silva's fighting, but no, it's because Andre Feely and Bryce Mitchell are on there, and Bobby Green's on there, and Maurice Green is fighting Greg Hardy. Like, yeah, I can't wait. But yeah, man, I think that's about it. I think we've been going for a little over an hour, and I think that's a sweet spot of our program.
We did it.
Yeah. So let's you have anything else to say to the fine people before we get out of here?
No, not really. Thanks for checking it out, guys. Anyone that sticks around for the whole episodes, we appreciate you all. Check out our channel and our clips and our social media and our likes and our subscribes and our comments, and leave those below and click the button and the link in description. And we do this stuff on Sundays and Mondays, and then that's it. So yeah,
I sign on to everything you just said.
Yeah,
I co-sign it. That's what I meant. I co-sign what you just said. Like, subscribe. I would, like if we're asking you to subscribe, we probably should also ask about that little notification bell.
Oh, you gotta click the bell.
Full disclosure, I've never clicked the bell. I would love if you click the bell. Do as I say,
you
not
guys
as I
do it.
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do. I've never clicked that bell, but you should. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys, watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace out.